All right, still with me in studio, former prosecutor, former CIA officer, and criminal defense attorney Jack Rice. And Jack, I know you have some experience in this system and you kind of know how things work. We were talking earlier, I was saying I was shocked to find out just how high the conviction rate in the U.S. was. If you're saying that only 1% are acquitted in Russia, in the United States, it's 99.6% that get convictions once they go in front of a jury. So only 0.04% find acquittals. So I was shocked to find that out. But at the end of the day, here's the other aspect of their system that's shocking to me, is that even when you're acquitted, the case isn't over. Here in the States it is. You can never rest there. They can come back and overturn acquittals. So talk to me a little bit about the system there and what she might be facing.
Well, see, I think that's part of the problem, is that, so I was in central Russia in the Ural Mountains. And we were teaching rule of law, which was really hard to even get in the first place, to be able to do that. And this was just a couple of years ago. The problem is when you have a system that doesn't apply to everybody equally, it gets weak. And it allows the leadership, wherever you are, to be able to come back and say, well, under these circumstances, we're going to change it. We're going to do it differently. We're going to reject the outcome because we don't like it. But, you know, if I really wanted to push, there could be some arguments that would say, what happens when somebody gets tried in a state court and they get a conviction or they get an acquittal? And then they can get charged for essentially a same act, but with a different set of laws in federal court. It happens. Now, it's not double jeopardy, so you're saying, well, that's different. Is it really, if it's the same set of acts that they're applying, but in a different way? Isn't that kind of the same thing? I think we have to really open our eyes and realize that sometimes we do amazing things in the U.S. There are times, however, when we're not quite as great as we want to believe that we are.
Yes, I'd have to agree with you, and I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think you're absolutely right. All right, Griner, what is she dealing with? First and foremost, she was found in possession of vape cartridges containing cannabis oil. Now, that's legal in most states in the United States. The THC, which is the hallucinogenic drug inside of cannabis, as long as it's below 0.05% in most states, you're fine. Obviously not the case in Russia. She goes to Russia all the time. She plays basketball there in the off-season, makes tons of money, big star there as well. Shouldn't she have known better?
What you might call that here is Delta 8, Delta 10, rather than Delta 9. And what we would say here is that's not even a crime in the first place. What they're charging her is with being a drug trafficker. And the one word that isn't spoken by anybody at this point, I haven't said it, you haven't said it, the State Department isn't really saying it, the Russians are absolutely not saying it, and it's this: Ukraine. That's what this is about. And in fact, the State Department has finally come out saying, you said you were going to hold her for 2 months. And then what you did at the end of 2 months is you extended it to 4 months. And now what you've done finally is saying we're going to charge her as a major drug trafficker. What is this about? Ukraine. And unfortunately, they're talking about a trade, they're talking about some other way, but this is about leverage. And sadly, you're using one human being to try to push a country to do something that you want them to do.
You're absolutely right, because in May, when they extended her stay, her detention there.
Her stay, thanks, Mike.
I had to change it. Changing her detention there, which she's under decent conditions, but certainly not ideal. She's away from her family. She has a wife here as well. She was then designated a political prisoner or being detained, wrongly detained at that point. Do you think there's a chance of this being resolved? Because I agree with you. At this point, this is about leverage. They want there's precedent for there being exchanges, but the types of exchanges that I'm hearing they want, this is Russia, are not the type that I think the United States is inclined to make. Your thoughts on what might be the outcome?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see a negotiated settlement in a case like this. There is so much going on. The fight is so intense. You have to understand what's happening in Moscow right now and what they're dealing with the Ukrainians. They had an expectation of what was going to happen in Kyiv, what was going to happen in the east. And what we saw is a ramping up from the west, certainly from the people inside of Ukraine fighting against the Russians. The intensity of that is causing political rippling inside of Russia itself. And so the Russians are having to deal with this issue. And Vladimir Putin is always going to be conscious of what that means. And so to simply fold your tent, not just when it comes to Ukraine, but when it comes to this person, actually makes them seem even weaker. Why would he do that? I have no expectation that he will.